On the short grass of the Masai Mara, an hour before sunset, a young male hyena approaches the largest animal in his clan, with his ears pinned flat and his tail curled tight against his belly. He lowers his head. He lifts one hind leg into the air, exposing an organ nearly 7 inches long, fully erect, dark with blood. Around them, a dozen other clan members go on feeding at a wildebeest carcass as if nothing is happening, because to them, nothing unusual is. The dominant hyena studies the younger animal for a moment. Then she raises her own leg and presents an organ that looks, to any observer without a hormone panel and a microscope, exactly the same. 2 hyenas, face to face in the fading light, both apparently male. Only one of them will ever give birth. For close to 2,000 years, a scene almost identical to this one convinced some of history's sharpest naturalists that hyenas were not one sex or the other, but both at once, switching form as they pleased. Today we're going to find out how a single hormonal accident inside the womb built an animal so anatomically confusing that it fooled Aristotle, unsettled medieval Europe, and stumped biologists until a research colony in California finally cracked the case in the 1980s. Spotted hyenas, Crocuta crocuta, live in clans of up to 80 animals across the grasslands of East Africa, from the Serengeti Plains to the floor of the Ngorongoro crater. A clan defends a shared territory, marks its borders with communal latrines and scent posts called pasting sites, and hunts together far more often than it scavenges. Studies of Serengeti clans have found that as much as 90% of a hyena's diet comes from animals the clan killed itself, not carrion stolen from lions, which is the reverse of the reputation the species has carried in film and folklore for a century. Rank inside the clan is inherited, not fought for fresh each generation. A cub takes on its mother's exact social position within weeks of birth, and every rank in a spotted hyena clan belongs, without exception, to a female line. The lowest-ranking adult female in a clan of 80 still outranks the highest-ranking adult male. It is one of only a handful of mammal societies on Earth where that is true. The Ngorongoro crater alone holds one of the densest hyena populations anywhere on the continent, an estimated several hundred animals split across roughly 8 clans packed into a caldera floor barely 20 kilometers across. Which means territorial lines are contested constantly, and rank inside each clan is not a courtesy title. It is the difference between eating first at a kill and not eating at all. It is inside this female-run world that the anatomy waits, and it waits in every single female from birth. A female spotted hyena is built almost like a mirror image of a male. Her clitoris is enlarged to the point that it is functionally a penis, up to 18 centimeters long, fully erectile, and it is the same single canal through which she urinates, mates, and eventually gives birth. Where a male has a scrotum, she has fused, swollen labia packed with fatty tissue that from 10 feet away is indistinguishable from testicles. Field biologists who cannot get close enough to run a hormone panel have historically had to sex hyenas by body size and behavior rather than by looking, because the genitals themselves lie. That anatomy detonates the first crisis of a female hyena's life the moment she gives birth for the first time. There is no separate birth canal. Every cub she will ever have is pushed through the same narrow phallic passage she urinates and mates through, an opening roughly 2.5 centimeters wide. A hyena cub weighs around 1.5 kilograms at birth and is born with its eyes already open and its canine teeth already erupted, ready to fight within hours of leaving the womb. For a mother giving birth for the first time, that passage almost never stretches enough on the first attempt. Long-term data from the Mara Hyena project, running continuously in Kenya since 1988, has documented labors that stretch past 24 hours, the tissue tearing under pressure to make room for a body it was never built to pass easily. A meaningful share of firstborn cubs suffocate during that delivery, never taking a breath outside the womb. The mother's own life is on the line in the same hour. Some first-time mothers die from the hemorrhage and tissue damage of a single birth. The species pays for its anatomy in blood, generation after generation, before a single cub has even opened its eyes to see the clan it was born into. The cubs that survive delivery are not safe yet. That crisis simply changes shape. A mother typically gives birth to twins in a hidden den, isolated from the rest of the clan, and almost as soon as the cubs can stand, they turn on each other. Both are born with fully erupted canines sharp enough to break skin within hours of birth, and same-sex twin pairs, especially two sisters, begin fighting for dominance before they have opened their eyes for more than a few days. The mother does not intervene. In roughly a quarter of twin litters, one cub is killed outright by its own sibling before either one ever leaves the den. What looks, from a human perspective, like a tragedy inside a single family is, inside hyena biology, a rank contest running years ahead of schedule, deciding before either cub has tasted meat which one will inherit the higher position in a hierarchy that, once set, will not meaningfully change for the rest of that animal's life. Researchers who monitor dens closely enough to witness it describe siblicide bouts lasting only minutes, brief, silent, and almost always finished before an observer even realizes a fight has started. Because there is no space inside a den barely wide enough for an adult hyena to turn around in, for a contest to run long. The cub that survives the den now has to survive the clan, a society of up to 80 hyenas, most of them unrelated, that decides how much food and protection it receives based entirely on a rank it inherited before it could walk. That inheritance is not automatic protection either. If a cub's mother dies or is displaced before the cub reaches full size, researchers tracking known individuals in the Mara have recorded that cub's inherited rank can collapse within weeks, as other females stop deferring to a position that was only ever backed by the mother standing beside her offspring at every contested meal. A cub that lost its mother at the wrong age can drop a dozen places in a single season, with no fight, no bite, simply the slow withdrawal of deference from every animal around it. And the way that rank gets checked, publicly, day after day, is where the anatomy comes back into the story in an even stranger form. Almost every encounter between clan members opens with what researchers call the meeting ceremony. Two hyenas approach each other stiff-legged, sniff noses, and then both lift a hind leg to expose and display their erect genitalia to one another, for several seconds at a time, males and females alike. To a first-time observer, it reads as unmistakable sexual invitation happening constantly between almost every possible pairing in the group. It is not. Researchers who have logged thousands of these encounters describe it as functioning closer to a passport check than a courtship, a ritual that confirms clan membership and relative status rather than sexual interest. Lower-ranking animals initiate the display toward higher-ranking ones far more often than the reverse, and an animal that hesitates or refuses to present when a dominant clan member demands it risks an immediate correction, sometimes a bite, sometimes a coordinated chase from several animals at once. The single most intimate-looking gesture in the hyena's entire behavioral repertoire turns out to be closer to a bureaucratic formality than an act of desire, performed constantly by animals of both sexes using organs that look, to any outside eye, exactly the same. None of that ceremony, however, is the actual mating that keeps the clan going, and getting from one to the other is where a male hyena's real ordeal begins. Male spotted hyenas almost always leave the clan they were born into around the age of 2 and try to immigrate into a new one, because clans strongly avoid inbreeding, and a male who stays home will never be permitted to mate with his own female relatives. That immigration is dangerous on its own. A young male approaching an unfamiliar clan's territory for the first time is treated as a trespasser, not a suitor. And resident hyenas frequently chase, bite, and in some documented cases, kill immigrating males before they are ever given the chance to be evaluated as a mate. The males who survive that first encounter enter the new clan at the very bottom of its separate, subordinate male hierarchy, ranked below every female in the group without exception. Survival does not get easier once a male has a place in the queue. Courtship in a hyena clan does not happen in a quiet, private corner. It happens in the open, often at the edge of a hunt, because trailing a chosen female is the only way a low-ranking male can stay near her long enough to be considered at all. That means a courting male is repeatedly present at exactly the moments a clan is most exposed, chasing wildebeest or zebra across open ground where lions also hunt. Lions kill hyenas opportunistically at kill sites across the Serengeti and Ngorongoro ecosystems, and a subordinate male, positioned at the edge of the group rather than protected inside it, is statistically among the most exposed animals in the chase. He cannot fall back to safety without losing the very proximity his entire courtship depends on. So he stays close to the kill, close to the female, and close to the danger, for a payoff that is not guaranteed and may not arrive that season at all. Even after he has survived immigration and secured a place at the bottom of the clan, a male still cannot simply mate. Because the female's genitalia so closely mirrors his own, actual copulation is a separate and far more delicate negotiation, and it is entirely on her terms. Her erect organ must retract and soften before penetration is physically possible at all, and that only happens when she allows it. Courting males spend weeks or months trailing a single chosen female, tolerating her aggression, waiting at a careful distance while she hunts, feeds, and largely ignores him, sometimes for an entire mating season with no result at all. Long-term field data from Kenya's hyena research stations has recorded males spending years inside a clan before a single female finally permits copulation, and the act itself, when it finally happens, typically lasts only a few minutes before the pair separate and return to completely ordinary lives, the male sliding back to the bottom of a hierarchy that exists entirely underneath the female one he can never enter. None of this made sense to the first people who ever tried to put a spotted hyena's body on paper. Aristotle, writing in the 4th century BCE in his History of Animals, examined hyena carcasses and concluded that the species possessed the organs of both sexes and could function as either one. The claim was wrong, but it was not lazy guesswork. Aristotle was describing real anatomy that genuinely does look, without dissection and staining, identical between the sexes to the naked eye. His conclusion did not die with him. Medieval bestiaries across Europe repeated and expanded the claim for well over 1,000 years, describing the hyena as an animal that changed sex at will, and using that supposed instability as a symbol of moral corruption in religious writing of the period. An animal whose body seemed to refuse to commit to one sex was, to a medieval reader, an animal that could not be trusted. And hyenas were folded into some of the era's ugliest allegories as a result, centuries before anyone had a reason to look at a single hyena's hormones. The confusion did not end with the close of the Middle Ages. Naturalists working in the field well into the 19th and 20th centuries continued to struggle to reliably sex live spotted hyenas from a distance. Because, unlike almost every other large mammal on the continent, you cannot do it by looking. The mechanism behind all of it was not finally isolated until the 1980s, when biologist Lawrence Frank and colleagues working with wild hyena populations in Kenya, followed by a dedicated captive research colony that primatologist Stephen Glickman established at the University of California, Berkeley in 1985, confirmed what was actually happening inside the womb, months before birth. Female hyena fetuses are exposed to unusually high levels of androgens, a class of hormones that includes testosterone, during a critical window of prenatal development. That exposure masculinizes the external genitalia before the cub is ever born, producing an adult female whose body plan looks male from the outside while remaining completely and functionally female underneath. An animal capable of ovulating, conceiving, and giving birth, however dangerously, through the very organ that confused 2,000 years of human observers. The Berkeley colony, maintained for more than 2 decades, let researchers do something no field study ever could: compare hormone levels directly against behavior in the same known individuals over their entire lives. And the pattern held every time. Higher prenatal androgen exposure tracked with more aggressive, more socially confident adult females, the exact temperament a matriarchal clan structure demands from the animals at the top of it. Many people still assume, even now, that spotted hyenas are true hermaphrodites, capable of switching sex or carrying functional organs of both, a belief that traces in an unbroken line straight back to Aristotle's original mistake, and one that still circulates in nature documentaries and casual conversation almost 24 centuries after he first wrote it down. That is not what is actually happening. Genetically and reproductively, every individual in a spotted hyena clan is unambiguously male or female, with no exceptions and no switching, and a chromosome test on any hyena on the continent would confirm it instantly. The females simply carry a masculinized exterior, built entirely by hormones before birth, convincing enough that it fooled the naked eye for 2,000 years, but never once fooling the biology underneath it. The confusion, the whole time, lived in the observer, never in the animal. The payoff of that anatomy is not decorative, and it is not incidental to the story either. Researchers studying the link between prenatal androgens and behavior have found that these same elevated hormones are associated with the aggression and social confidence that let female hyenas outcompete males for food, territory, and rank from the moment they are born. The anatomy that looked, for 2 millennia, like a deformity or a monstrosity to human observers is now understood as part of the same biological package that built one of the only strictly matriarchal societies among large mammals on Earth, a system in which a newborn female cub already outranks every adult male in her clan before she has opened her eyes for the first time. The cost of that system is paid early, and it is paid in blood. It is paid in a den where sisters fight before either one can properly stand. It is paid by young males who cross into a stranger's territory and are chased down before anyone even considers whether they might make a good father. It is paid at a birth canal built for urination and status display that must also, every single time, without a workaround, deliver a 1.5 kilogram cub already carrying a full set of erupted teeth. There is no easier version of this anatomy on offer, no gentler channel the species could have evolved toward instead. What natural selection kept for millions of years was the version that came bundled with dominance, not the version that came bundled with an easier delivery. And the trade was never negotiated with the individual mothers who pay for it, one birth at a time. Right now, in dens scattered across the Serengeti, the Mara, and the crater floor of Ngorongoro, this season's litters are already arriving. And for a share of the mothers giving birth for the first time this week, the same drawn-out ordeal that has defined the species for millions of years is happening again. In the dark, almost entirely unwitnessed, the price the spotted hyena has always paid for a body built first to dominate, and only second, and at real cost, to give birth at all.